What's up guys, WSC Stage Creator back again with another video. Today we're going to take a look back and review the entire year of WWE in 2020. So starting off 2020, it looked like it was going to be a great year for WWE, and it kinda was. But because of the pandemic and all the circumstances surrounding that, man, this year could have been a whole lot better if we had the fans in attendance, but unfortunately due to the circumstances, we definitely could not have that happen, and hopefully in 2021 we can. But they did make the best of a bad situation. They created the Thunderdome and they were in the Performance Center for a bit of time. That was really bad. Hated the Performance Center, but the Thunderdome is actually really nice, and I like that they moved to a big arena and it looks and feels like a WWE show now instead of that crappy little warehouse. But the Thunderdome is actually really good for now. Hopefully it will change soon. But yeah, this year could have been a whole lot better. This would have been one of the best years in WWE in recent memory if they had the fans in attendance, but unfortunately they did not. But let's get right into the review. Starting from January, we start at the Royal Rumble right here. It was the Royal Rumble match, one of the best Royal Rumble matches in history in my opinion. We started with Brock Lesnar. Now Brock Lesnar joined the Royal Rumble match because basically he had no challenges. The Raw roster was really thin, a lot of young talent. There was no one to face Brock Lesnar, so they just like throw him in the Royal Rumble, let's set up a match for WrestleMania, and that they did. Drew McIntyre, the guy that they wanted to push at the time, and I thought Drew McIntyre for years, since 2018 when he came back to the main roster as a heel, I thought he had so much potential. I predicted him to win Money in the Bank in 2019. Well, unfortunately he didn't, but he came back and he won the Royal Rumble here. He eliminated Brock Lesnar, massive pop. We got the return of MVP, which we'll talk about a lot later in the video, but we did get the return of Edge. Man, it was so good to see Edge back, even though it was spoiled previously online for like 2 months before. It was so nice to see Edge, and Edge did some good stuff this year. But man, that Royal Rumble was really awesome. Brock Lesnar destroying people. I believe he broke the record for eliminations. Don't quote me on that. I believe he did though. And the face-off with Keith Lee and then Matt Riddle being in the Rumble too. It was a really great Royal Rumble match. Drew McIntyre winning that, and he went on to have an amazing year. So there's a lot going on in this setup right here, so I'm just going to go out of order here, and we're just going to talk about everybody individually. So let's start off right here with Otis. Otis had a big year this year, and then he had a real bad downfall at the end of the year. He had this great storyline with Mandy Rose, trying to get the pretty girl Mandy Rose. He was feuding with Dolph Ziggler, and eventually he did get Mandy Rose. He got a kiss at WrestleMania and beat Dolph Ziggler. Then they did Money in the Bank at the top of the headquarters, climbed the corporate ladder, and it was basically a comedy match. Wasn't the best honestly, but basically you just go through the corporate headquarters and try to get to the top and get the briefcase. Basically Otis won because AJ Styles fumbled it out of his hands and it went into Otis's hands, and Otis won. He didn't even have to climb the ladder, so Otis won Money in the Bank, and everyone was like, what the hell? Is Otis gonna become world champion? And it seems like they just made him win the match just for a gag, just for a laugh, because it was a comedy match, and they came to their senses. They knew he wasn't going to win the championship. Otis was not going to beat Drew McIntyre or Roman Reigns for the championship, so they took the briefcase off of Otis. They had his partner Tucker turn on him, and The Miz won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Then The Miz lost his cash in, and he cashed in on Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles and made it a triple threat match at TLC. In a TLC match, lost that, I guess basically because they didn't want to make Otis look weak in defeat. Oh, and as of filming this, Miz is back to being Mr. Money in the Bank. He got granted the championship back again because John Morrison was the one to cash in for The Miz, and the rules state nobody else can cash in the briefcase but The Miz, the winner of the Money in the Bank briefcase. So The Miz is Mr. Money in the Bank, and we'll have to wait and see if Miz is going to become world champion. But man, Otis was really hurt by losing the fans in attendance right here. This guy really relies on the fan connection. Who knows where he would be at the end of this year had the fans been there in attendance. Maybe he would have won Money in the Bank originally, maybe not. Maybe Otis would have cashed in and won the championship. who knows what would have happened with Otis, but right now he's paired with Chad Gable in some sort of coaching angle where Chad Gable's kind of heelish or something. I don't know what's going on there, but I definitely see big things for Otis when the fans come back in attendance. Now, looking at The Miz and John Morrison returned this year, and it wasn't quite what we expected, but it wasn't that bad either. Now, they paired The Miz and John Morrison together. They're a tag team, and John Morrison showed a lot more personality than he did in his first run in WWE, and that may be to his detriment because he kind of acted very silly, and it made him look like a kind of a joke, and you can't really take him seriously anymore, and he loses all the time. But it's good to see him having fun. He looks like he's having a blast with The Miz, and they're doing good stuff. It's just a little silly, and it's hard to take these two seriously. And let's not forget to mention the Hey Hey Ho Ho song on Braun Strowman, the diss track. Man, I've listened to that so many times this year. Low-key slaps. It's kind of awesome. I don't know why, but I don't know, it just sounds really good. But getting into the next thing I want to talk about is Bayley and Sasha Banks. These women killed it this year, the MVPs of the women's division. Also Asuka, also Alexa Bliss. A lot of people stepped up this year on the roster. But let's talk about these two right here, the golden role models. Bayley had an amazing championship run with the SmackDown Women's Championship. She dominated for like a record amount of days. I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head. They won the Women's Tag Team Championships. Sasha won the Raw Women's Championship, and they were double champions for quite some time. Then they broke up. Sasha went on to beat Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and Sasha's doing great stuff right now. But these two MVPs of the year for sure. They did awesome. Speaking of MVPs, this man, what an amazing return for him. Oh my, I was super excited. Sucks that his Royal Rumble return was spoiled. There was a photo of his Titantron. Somebody took it of the arena and it got spoiled the day before. But man, talk about a return, man. This guy, he just elevated the careers of three men who were just kind of floundering. They were just there, but now the Hurt Business, one of the greatest factions in WWE and wrestling today, and now they've ended the year with the United States Championship and the Raw Tag Team Championships. Man, Cedric Alexander is a heel. Really, really great. He's doing good things. I expect a good year in 2021 for him. Shelton Benjamin, man, this guy has not really gotten a chance since he came back to WWE, but now he's gotten a chance here and he's doing good stuff. He just kind of lacks the promo work, but Shelton Benjamin, it's good to see him in the limelight here. And Bobby Lashley, this guy needs to be fighting for world championships. He did get the chance to fight Drew, and that was really good, but now he's a dominant United States champion, which is good to see, and I expect big things from him in 2021 as well. But MVP, props to him. He killed it this year. Then over here, might as well talk about AJ Styles here. So AJ Styles, he started the year with the OC, he feuded with The Undertaker, had that amazing Boneyard match, an instant classic, best match of the year in WWE. He basically got buried alive, but somehow he's alive. Then he won the Intercontinental Championship. He had some issues with Paul Heyman, so they moved him from Raw to SmackDown. Then he went back to Raw. The OC, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows got fired in that massive bunch of people who got fired this year due to the pandemic. So then he got moved back to Raw. Then he got this new associate, the massive Omos, who did a couple of different things this year. He was like one of the ninjas. Then he was the bodyguard at Raw Underground, but now he's the associate, the massive giant associate of AJ Styles. His name is Omos now. But AJ Styles had a pretty good year. He had the last ever match of The Undertaker, and that's an amazing accomplishment for AJ Styles. Had the best match of the year, the Boneyard match, go down in history as a classic. But overall, pretty good year for AJ Styles. Moving on over to Edge. Let's talk about Edge's return here. So returned at the Royal Rumble. He lasted to the final three, got eliminated by Roman Reigns. He eliminated Randy Orton in the match. The next night, Randy Orton tricked Edge saying, "Let's reform," rated RKO. Then he turned on Edge in an amazing segment there. That was so shocking. The fans were absolutely shocked. Randy Orton hit the concerto on Edge, and Edge with the neck issues. Everyone was so shocked to see that. And these two had an amazing feud. Randy Orton RKOing Beth Phoenix, Edge's wife. Then the pandemic happened, and their matches didn't get to happen in front of fans. So we got a last man standing match between these two at WrestleMania in the Performance Center. A lot of people said it was long, drawn out, and a little bit boring. I thought it was alright, but yeah, you could say that. Then they had a match at Backlash, which was billed as the greatest wrestling match ever. A lot of people were pissed that they would call this the greatest wrestling match ever before it even happened, and they had a really good match. They actually did try to deliver, and they had a really good match. Wouldn't call it the greatest wrestling match ever. They were just trying to build this up because, you know, you go from a last man standing match to a singles normal match. So how do you promote that? How do you get people invested in that, going from a last man standing match to just a normal match? I guess you gotta call it the greatest wrestling match ever. Then Edge got hurt in that match. He got an RKO and he landed funny. He tore his tricep, I believe, and he's been out ever since. So maybe at the Royal Rumble this year, he will return, or just before WrestleMania, I do expect Randy Orton versus Edge at WrestleMania, just to wrap up that feud, because they definitely do have unfinished business. But after that, let's talk about Randy Orton. This guy had an amazing year. He stepped up, he killed it this year, and the Legend Killer showed through. He had that amazing feud with Edge. Then he went on a punting spree, just like destroying all the legends. He destroyed Big Show, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, Christian. But yeah, he killed it this year. The Legend Killer returned, and he was just destroying people with the punt kick. Then he faced Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship, and after a couple of tries, he eventually did win the championship, which he definitely did deserve after an amazing year. He really did step up, so he definitely deserved that. But then he lost it just a couple of weeks after. He won the title at Hell in a Cell, but he lost it on Raw a couple weeks after, then started a feud with The Fiend where he set him on fire. He burnt him to a crisp, and now we haven't seen The Fiend since, so we'll have to wait and see where that goes in 2021. But Randy Orton, an amazing year for him. He absolutely killed it. But getting into the next person I want to talk about, it is Drew McIntyre. This guy, the breakout star, the superstar of the year, Drew McIntyre. Talking about going from zero to hero. He wasn't really doing much, but then Royal Rumble comes around. He really stepped up. He got the 3-2-1 thing into the Claymore, and we didn't really know if he was a babyface or heel, but coming into the Royal Rumble, when he took out Lesnar, he won the match, instant babyface, and then he went on to beat Lesnar at WrestleMania in front of no one. Unfortunately, that really sucks for him. He really held down the fort this year. He won the championship. He held it for a while, versus like Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, Dolph Ziggler, Randy Orton, and he held that title until he lost it to Orton just to win it back. And then he versed Roman Reigns at Survivor Series in a great match. They actually gave him a kilt and a sword for his entrance, which made his entrance a whole lot better, because before that he was just kind of walking out and like it was kind of a boring entrance, but now this actually gives some personality and it's a really cool entrance to do. So Drew McIntyre, they really did good with him this year, really made him into a star. When he eventually loses that title, is he still going to be a star, or is the title making him? We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds, but he's been really good this year. Next up, let's talk about Retribution. So Ali was the hacker on SmackDown, which we didn't know at the time, which was rumored at the time but wasn't actually official. He did announce it later on when he did turn heel and join Retribution, and we found out that he was the leader. So Retribution started basically in the Performance Center. They came in, destroyed things, the lights were flickering all the time. Then, because WWE were sick of them tearing up the arena and doing all that, they signed them to WWE contracts so that they wouldn't do that. And then we got like a bunch of core members of the group instead of just like 20 masked figures of people in hoodies and masks. We got Slapjack, T-Bar, Mace, and Reckoning. And T-Bar is Dominik Dijakovic from NXT, Slapjack is Shane Thorne, and Mace is Dio Madden, Mia Yim is Reckoning, and there was Mercedes Martinez in that group, but she actually just bailed. She's like, nah, I don't want to be a part of that. Kinda sucks. Get me back to NXT. Fair move to her, fair play, but Ali was the leader of the group. They were losing a bunch, but now in recent times, they're actually winning. It's amazing how this gimmick is still going, but we'll have to wait and see. A lot of people complained about this, but you know, Retribution isn't that bad of a gimmick. I understand Ali wants to put these guys in masks and change their names to stupid names so that they can feel the same way he feels, how he's criticized by his name and his appearance. So that's actually really smart and that's cool, but we'll have to wait and see where they go in 2021. But yeah, I just had a little bit of an issue at the start when they were acting like little kids in the mask, destroying everything. But yeah, if they're taken a little bit more seriously, maybe they can be good. Next up, let's talk about some guys who are very underutilized this year. We're talking about Andrade, Ricochet, and Aleister Black. Now, Andrade started the year good. He was United States Champion, but then once he lost the title, he barely did anything. He was tagging with Angel Garza, but man, he was very underutilized and we haven't seen him in months now, so we'll have to wait and see what they do with him. Hopefully they do use him next year, but definitely a very underutilized talent. Yes, I get it, he can't really speak, so you don't want to push him too hard because you have to be able to tell stories, you have to be able to speak, but you know, he definitely deserves to be on the show at least. And then you have Ricochet here. He was built as a star last year. He was really good, and he was definitely a top player in the company. You know, I wouldn't see him as a world champion, but he could definitely be a credible mid-card champion and a really good babyface high flyer. But man, he was just squashed by Brock Lesnar in that world title match, and he's never been the same ever since, pretty much buried. Then he lost the next night to Riddick Moss clean, and I thought maybe there was a story behind this. Maybe he would have some redemption story. He'd keep losing and then eventually win the big one, but no. He just basically got buried, and that was very stupid. Hopefully they come to their senses and they use him a little bit better next year. And then we have Aleister Black, who had all the potential in the world. People wanted him to win Money in the Bank, and they did nothing with him. He got his eye destroyed by Seth Rollins, then he turned heel, and we haven't seen him in a while. His wife got released from the company. Hopefully they do some good stuff with him. I understand maybe his character needs a bit more fleshing out, maybe he needs something else gimmick-wise, but man, he definitely needs to be used next year. Hopefully they do so. But we'll have to wait and see what they do with these guys. Getting into the next person who was underutilized, but this year they actually did really good with. It's Apollo Crews, who ended up winning the United States Championship. And for a brief moment, he was pushed as a big star on the show. But after he lost the championship to Bobby Lashley, things have not been the same. We haven't seen him in a prominent position on SmackDown in ages. So who knows what is next for Apollo Crews. So it's interesting to see how somebody could rise so high up and then fall so drastically like that. Sucks to see, but you know what? That's the way it is here in this business, high and lows. Next up, who we're going to talk about is Bray White, a man who had an amazing year this year. Started off as Universal Champion, then he lost to Goldberg in a very bad match at Super Showdown, and I understand why he lost here. They want to set up two main event WrestleMania matches in Roman Reigns versus Goldberg and Bray White, The Fiend versus John Cena, so I get that, but man, losing to Goldberg like that was a little But we did get an amazing Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania between these two, and due to the circumstances of the pandemic, this match I think was much better than a match in a stadium that these guys would have had. I thought the creativity of this and just how detailed and just like, if you really analyze this match, it's really, really good. And what they did with John Cena, he basically got buried, like seriously mentally destroyed, physically destroyed by The Fiend Bray White. How the hell does John Cena bounce back from this? It was great. But where the hell do you go with John Cena from here? How is he just gonna come back? He has to somehow redeem himself or have a character change or something, because they really destroyed him in that. Then Bray Wyatt went on to feud with Braun Strowman the entire year, basically. They had a pretty good feud. It was dragged out a little bit. The old Bray Wyatt came back, which was really cool. They had a swamp match, which is very underwhelming, probably the worst cinematic match of the year. Then Braun Strowman turned heel, and they actually had Bray Wyatt as a babyface here, and Strowman shaved his head. Strowman won the Universal Championship due to Roman Reigns not wanting to wrestle during the pandemic times. So Strowman got a lucky break. He also won the Intercontinental Championship this year. So Strowman had a pretty good year, and just by chance, he won the Universal Championship. Bray Wyatt went on to win the championship. The Fiend won the championship again at SummerSlam, only for Roman Reigns to come back and win it the very next week at Payback. These two destroyed the ring. Roman Reigns wrecked everyone and left the Universal Champion. Then The Fiend went on to do a storyline with Alexa Bliss, and basically this has been really good. Alexa Bliss kind of possessed by The Fiend, and this has been really good. Then he feuded with Randy Orton on Raw, burnt to a crisp at TLC, and we haven't seen him since. So great year for Bray White, and it'll be interesting to see what they do for him next year. Then while we're here, might as well talk about Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns was a babyface, still wearing the vest at the start of the year. He was gonna verse Goldberg. He was definitely gonna win the Universal Championship. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, he was like, nah, I'm peacing out for me and my family. So he was away most of the year. Then he came back as a heel at SummerSlam. He wrecked everyone and left. Then he showed up with Paul Heyman and solidified that heel turn, and then won the Universal Championship at Payback, and then started a family feud with Jey Uso, which has been really good. Roman Reigns, dude, this guy's reaching his potential here as a heel. I didn't realize how bad babyface Roman Reigns was until we saw this Roman Reigns. This Roman Reigns is absolutely amazing. The feud with Jey Uso, the stuff he's been doing with Kevin Owens, this guy is killing it. He is a full-fledged star, and I cannot wait to see what they do with him in 2021. That is bound to be his year. Now let's talk about something that was very bad this year, the 24/7 Championship in its second year of existence. Man, it's just people running around and rolling up each other. Basically Akira Tozawa, R-Truth, and Drew Gulak just trying to roll up each other and running around. It's just that you could do so much more creative stuff with this. Definitely should have been a hardcore championship, but man, that is very disappointing. Get it off my TV. It's just, there's nothing funny about people running around chasing each other anymore. It's so tired. Just do something creative with it. Then we had the Street Profits, who had an amazing year as Raw Tag Team Champions and SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Really good year for them. Charlotte Flair won the NXT Women's Championship at WrestleMania after winning the Royal Rumble match. Pretty good year for Charlotte. She was away for most of the year after this. Basically kind of buried Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. I understand she's the GOAT of the women's division, and you know, they want to make her look good at WrestleMania. Basically had her win the Royal Rumble and verse the NXT champion just so she could have a match at WrestleMania. So yeah, I understand that, but Rhea Ripley was hot at the time. They really shouldn't have buried her like that, but you know, it is what it is. Charlotte is the commodity, and she's gonna look good at WrestleMania whether anyone likes it or not. She also returned and won the tag team championships just recently with Asuka, who had an amazing year for herself. After coming off a couple of hard years for her after NXT, she really didn't find her footing until now. She started doing this kind of babyface thing where she just yells, and it's like very comedic. She yells in Japanese or whatever, and she was actually really entertaining this year, and she did really good. She won the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which actually turned out to be the winner of the championship because Becky Lynch had to relinquish the title due to her being pregnant, and that was a special moment on Raw, which unfortunately didn't take place in front of fans. But yeah, that was a cool moment right there. Becky Lynch relinquishes the title to Asuka, and Asuka had a great year. Then we have Big E and the New Day splitting up this year. The New Day kind of went their separate ways. It looks like they're pushing Big E as a single star. He's the new Intercontinental Champion, and people are saying he should win the Royal Rumble, but I think it's too soon for him to win the Royal Rumble. Use him as the IC champion, build him up. Maybe SummerSlam next year will be the time for Big E. Then we had Sami Zayn winning the Intercontinental Championship. He was great this year. I love Sami Zayn as a heel. I loved him back in the days of NXT when he was a babyface, but heel Sami Zayn is amazing. I'm loving it. And Cesaro and Shinsuke got turned into a tag team this year. You know, two underutilized guys as well, but you know, they gave him the championship, so I guess it's alright. Shinsuke, one world title away from becoming a Grand Slam champion, and they've actually done pretty good with Shinsuke, giving him all the titles except for the world title. But I really do miss babyface Shinsuke. Maybe one day we can get that back. I don't know if he'll be as popular as he was before, but Shinsuke, I really am still a fan. Then we had the return of Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy did really good this year. I really liked what they did with him, the feuds he had with Sheamus and Elias. Good return for Jeff Hardy, and apparently he's going to bring back the old theme song, No More Words, when the fans come back, so we'll have to wait and see if that makes a difference for Jeff Hardy in next year if the fans do come back. Then we got the big feud of the Mysterio family and Seth Rollins and the disciple Murphy. Seth Rollins destroyed the eye of Rey Mysterio and attacked Dominic with a kendo stick repeatedly. Seth Rollins turned into the Messiah this year, and he had a good feud with Rey Mysterio and Dominic. Dominic getting in the ring at SummerSlam. He's actually looking pretty good. He's doing good in the ring. Rey Mysterio's eye popped out on the steel steps. He got his eye ripped out by Seth Rollins. So good feud there. Buddy Murphy joins the Mysterios and now is dating Aaliyah. And Seth Rollins took time away to be with Becky Lynch as she had her baby. So we'll have to see what's next for Seth Rollins in the next year. But I don't really like the Messiah gimmick. I prefer him as a babyface. I think he needs to find something that fits, and I don't know if the Messiah gimmick is really a main event gimmick in my opinion, so I hope he does something different in 2021. Then we had two NXT superstars who debuted on the main roster, unfortunately in front of no crowd. It was Matt Riddle, who got his name shortened to just Riddle, and we have Keith Lee, who debuted in a freaking skirt and a singlet. And yeah, Keith Lee definitely got a repackage. He lost his theme song, now he's got a brand new one, which is actually decent. The singlet has kind of grown on me. We'll have to wait and see how these guys develop with fans in attendance. I think that really hurts them right now, but I am a fan of both these guys, and I could see Keith Lee possibly maybe winning the Royal Rumble, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Then we had the return of Lars Sullivan, who came back with a little bit of a new look and a new theme song, and we haven't seen him in recent weeks, but we got a lot of backstory to him about the whole bullying stuff in some very laughable promos, some very entertaining but cringy and funny promos by Lars Sullivan. I really liked that. That was gold. And then we had Shane McMahon returning to do Raw Underground, which was basically in the last hour of Raw. Basically, there was like an underground fighting thing where people would just come in and fake shoot fight in a ring, and it was starting to grow on me. It was actually decent, but due to the NXT extras, all the people that they had looking on watching the Raw Underground in attendance, a lot of NXT people got sick this year and they didn't want it spreading to the main roster, so they stopped Raw Underground because of that. And I definitely don't see it coming back this year, but it was actually decent while it lasted. Then we had the return of Sheamus as a singles guy instead of being in the team of The Bar with Cesaro. He came back with the old look and as a heel, and he actually did some good stuff this year, feuding with Jeff Hardy, and then he started a little program with Drew McIntyre as best friends, the real life best friends, and it looks like they're gonna start feuding in the next year in 2021, so I'm looking forward to that. And Sheamus is actually really good. I actually am a big fan of Sheamus. He's good on the mic, he's good in the ring, and I think he's really good, so I can't wait to see what these two do in a feud. Hopefully they go head to head, it looks that way. Then we had Lana this year, who did a bunch of stuff with like the wedding and the affair with Lashley and Rusev and all that. Then she comes in as a babyface who was just getting destroyed by Nia Jax through the announcers table for many weeks in a row. Then the storyline abruptly ends when they shoehorn Charlotte in there, and then basically write off Lana with an injury. Shayna Baszler debuted on the Raw roster, basically as a vampire, biting Becky Lynch and making her bleed. Then she destroyed everyone in the Elimination Chamber in like the worst Elimination Chamber match. Then goes on to team with Nia Jax and become the Women's Tag Team Champion. Samoa Joe on commentary this year, which is very interesting. I wonder if he's done in the ring or not. Then the last thing we're going to talk about is The Undertaker actually officially retiring this year after an amazing Boneyard match, his last match with AJ Styles, match of the year, classic match, amazing way to go out, and he had a very good final farewell at Survivor Series. 30 years of The Undertaker. Thank you, Taker, for an amazing career. Unfortunately had to say goodbye in front of no fans, but what a year 2020 was for WWE. Comment down below what you thought of this year in WWE. Please smash the like button, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video.